All right. Hello and welcome to the director's commentary here for At the Drive-in. I am the director, Alexander Monelli, and I have a special guest with me today, and that would be Mr. Robert. How's it going, Rob?
Hi, it's going well. It's great to be here.
So Rob couldn't make it to the other two commentary track recordings, and I was going to record a director's commentary where I kind of talk about, the equipment that I used, what I was thinking with this edit, and I feel like it would be much better if I had someone to bounce things off of. So I'm kind of glad you couldn't make it to those recordings because I feel like now we can do this sort of one-on-one, just talking about At the Drive-in.
I think I prefer this as well. I think it'll be better listen.
So for anyone who, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've seen the movie. I think it's pretty obvious to most people that I fell in love with you because you are in this movie, from when you're introduced about 20 minutes in, you're in this movie quite a bit.
Is it only 20 minutes?
It's about 20 minutes in, you're introduced. And I feel like from then on, you have an arc in this movie. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that. It was a very warm and communicative filmmaking process, and it's been a very valuable experience, even though it was uncomfortable at times. That's not your fault. That's totally on me, and this helped me to better appreciate those aspects of myself, I think.
When you say uncomfortable, do you mean being recorded and having to think of things to say or that process or personal things?
I think that kind of scrutiny, that, holding the mirror up to yourself, I've often been just awkward, even though I'm also very, I think, outward. As a young child, I was known for being very performative at family parties, recreating songs or stories and whatnot. And this was a new level.
So I want to kind of start with, we just watched this whole opening intro, which was basically just kind of like a recut of the teaser trailer. I know I've mentioned this to you before, but you were the original opening of the movie. Before any credits, it was sort of an SNL-style cold open of you, and you're telling that story about... It's in the middle of the movie now, but you're telling that story about seeing the film where they do the homage to Citizen Kane.
The maybe inadvertent homage to Citizen Kane, yes.
Right. So, and I showed the film to a few filmmakers, and I kind of tracked down. The funny thing is, there's some filmmakers who I never met them, but their work played in really good film festivals. So I just, hit them up on Twitter or emailed them and asked, hey, would you take a look at my film and tell me what you think? Because I feel like if you show it to friends, they're not going to give you the feedback that you need.
That's much harder, I think, to take and receive, to give and receive.
And I made this film in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is I shot it, I cut it, I didn't bring it or ask anyone, should I do this or should I do that? It was really just, just me and this film.
I think it stands on its own quite beautifully. As much as a former movie critic has a hard time being being objective about something that you're involved in, I can tell it's a beautiful piece of work. I'm very moved by it.
I appreciate that. But with having it being just in my head, in front of me, I felt like, okay, I'm lost in the woods a little bit here. I need someone to kind of say, I'm not looking for, is this bad? Is this good? I'm looking for, does this make sense? Am I getting across what I need to get across? And opening the film with you, ultimately, it wasn't working for some of these people. And I was like, man, I love listening to him talk. He's really interesting. He's really funny. I couldn't figure it out. And then it dawned on me. We went from your opening where you tell this kind of like interesting and funny story, and then we go into this sort of wistful, nostalgic opening with this really nice piece of music, and the juxtaposition of those two scenes, the tone was very radically off. So
I'm immensely grateful that you did not make that decision. And thank goodness for the audience. Sometimes we need them to keep us in check.
So I feel like introducing you up front like that was not a good move, because we needed to have context of who you were to get why what you were saying was interesting or funny. Does that make sense?
I think that's that's a good line of logic.
So ultimately, I took that part out and then just put it in the middle, and I think it works a lot better. Do you remember that first night when we met at the drive-in, on opening night?
I do not, unfortunately. I trust it, but it was such an overwhelming experience that aside from probably pissing Jeff off a little bit for how much I was talking at him,
my favorite part of the movie...
remember that and crying during The Wizard of Oz.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Oh, my.
I remember my favorite part in the line in the movie is you telling Jeff that you're already planning on seeing 35 movies there.
That was opening weekend. Okay. Okay, I do remember that now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before we move on, let me ask you this. Do you think that your original editing with me at the beginning and then dropping in later was a subconscious homage to the structure of Goodfellas, which I know you love dearly?
It's possible. I do love when movies start and you don't know what is happening. It's almost like you're in the middle of something and you have to pay attention.
Something that just drops you in midstream. There's a lot of movies that I love that do that. And sometimes it alienates the audience, but sometimes filmmakers, need us to play catch up. And goodness, what Scorsese achieved with one movie. How many times do you think you've watched it? I probably have watched it at least, not overstating it, at least 60 times.
I'm probably somewhere. I mean, Goodfellas is a huge influence, not just on me as a lover of movies, but I always talk about Scorsese as he makes documentaries. His movies are loaded with narration, so you're constantly, it's like you're hearing that voiceover the way you do in a documentary. You hear someone talking, but then sometimes it cuts to like other footage, you see what they're talking about. And I love his close-ups. So you see a lot of these close-ups here, like of the film.
He has a very good appreciation for those tactile qualities.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that grounds them, whether he's making something that's very minimalist, like The Last Temptation of Christ, or something that's very, Hollywood, like Hugo. Something with a big budget still has his qualities to it. And in a similar, but, at the same time, very different vein, your film definitely stands on its own. It's a singular vision.
Do you remember the first time you saw this?
That was at the, it was kind of the coffee lounge setup. I don't remember the name of it, but in Reading, Pennsylvania. No, I watched it.
Yeah,
I watched it on a screener link the first time.
That's right.
Yeah.
I did send you a private link.
Yeah, that was a good experience.
Do you remember?
I showed up late at that screening, as I now recall.
Yeah, that was in Lancaster, not Reading. You were at the Reading screening, though, at the IMAX theater.
Oh, that's right, across from the Goggle Works.
Yes.
Okay.
What was your reaction, not only to the movie itself, but to seeing you in there?
I think that it was good to see something that was clearly, a form of adoration, but through someone else's eyes. It was very affirming, and it helped me to feel a little more sane, because I know that my dedication to movies is very literally insane sometimes, be it the distances that we go or the money that we spend or, just how much of our time we dedicate to them aside.
Did you feel embarrassed at all? Did you feel, I want him to take this part out?
I think that I had that kind of fluttering that idea fluttered around a little bit, but I think that's more just me kind of, I guess, to carry the metaphor, coming out of my cocoon a little bit. And it was an overall very positive experience. I'm very happy for being forced to confront those feelings in a very public way and under some of the best circumstances. Everyone that's come to this movie has been the kind of person who pretty much gets it at a basic instinctive level. It's not something that you can really explain. Sometimes you just have to feel it.
So with this opening here, this is sort of the backstory of the Mahoning. I like this backstory part, but it's been mentioned to me that the movie really kicks off when the backstory's out of the way and you're just hanging out with the guys at the drive-in, seeing what happens, hearing them talk, hanging out. It basically becomes a hangout movie after this. I'm curious if that plays to you and what your thoughts are on sort of the structure of the movie, and do you have a preference for, is there a moment when you feel like, oh, okay, now the movie's starting now?
I think that it hits a real good stretch in terms of just coasting off of the good vibes of everyone involved. You've got that great little montage where James is going around in his Godzilla suit, if memory serves. Mm-hmm. And, having been there, having been on the other side of the camera, having lived it so much, because I was there 95% of the time. Oh, okay, I like this part.
Why do you like this part? Sorry to sidetrack.
This is kind of where I feel like I came into the equation. Like, I'm getting to know all these people that are behind the scenes and just sort of learning little bits and pieces about the legacy, about the drama. I learned so much from this movie, and I'm still noticing new things. I've seen it 5 or 6 times now, I'm not sure. But, it's...
so you've almost seen it as many times as you've seen Mandy.
Yes, I've seen Mandy at least 7 or 8 times now. This recording is in January 2019, so do the math. That's both theatrically and at home, DVD, Blu-ray, and iTunes digital download. And I think that I'm going to have to end up seeing this at least that many more times in my lifetime, between screenings and showing it to people. It's remarkable, both the movie itself and the experience.
So we mentioned, why I started the movie with you, kind of opening the film with you. The reason I did that was because I wanted to sort of bookend the movie, because you are the closing shot of the film, if you recall.
Very well.
And I just thought it was a fantastic arc. The movie is essentially through you. You kind of represent the audience in a way, because it's your first night ever at the Mahoning when we meet you. We see you, throughout as just a patron, and then you mention an interest in volunteering. And then at the end, we see you are part of the team. You're behind the concession stand. And then you're speechless with just how overwhelming the experience was, which, you are quite a chatty guy.
Yes, despite my best efforts. Aaron Sorkinese is how I described it to my girlfriend earlier today. We weren't having a fight, but we thought we were having a fight just because of how intense it was. And, you have to step outside of yourself. And again, this movie's helped me do that. It's embarrassing sometimes, but it's definitely who I am. And the people who know me have appreciated it so far. The word salad, what have you.
So I do want to try to throw in some technical things. So again, if you see anything, feel free to throw in any questions about technical stuff. But I will say the film was shot digitally on a Canon C100 Mark II. That's one of their cinema line cameras, and mostly handheld. It's very cinema verite. And you kind of mentioned Errol Morris at one point in the movie, and I feel like this is something, I feel like this is there's parts of this that kind of go into his sort of style and whatnot. But yeah, it was mostly handheld, and that I felt like did that help at all when I'm interviewing you and it's just me holding a camera, or is it less intimidating than if there were lights and a tripod and like extra people around recording sound?
I think it would definitely be less intimidating. I've had just very minimal experience with the latter, and most of that was actually being on the press photo op for this documentary when we went to LA. I've done some performances with theater in high school, and that's about it. So I would just assume that, and I think that most of the comfort was through you. You were able to open up enough as a filmmaker that I was more comfortable opening up as a subject.
Yeah, honestly, like I loved every time you were there. I was like, oh, I gotta hang out with Robert and see what's on his mind. And like every moment where you have a very long soliloquy,
after very good prompting,
it was the prompt was literally like, "So how's it going?" And that turns it. Somehow you got into talking about Dwarves Kingdom, and it's great, and it would just make me laugh, like the way that you're able to like go from topic to topic, but if you pay attention, it flows, and it's really like very much like it's very Tarantonian in how you have these monologues, but like they actually do flow and make sense, but you don't. If you looked at it, you wouldn't think you'd end up where you end up when you're at the beginning of it. Does that make sense?
It does, I think, and that's fitting for my conversational style. The sad truth is it's so much more pared down than it used to be. I mean, God bless Dr. Reynolds of Moravian College for wading through my paragraphs of, sentences with 4 and 5 and 6 and 10 clauses. I need an editor. You were my editor in this case. You saw through everything. You were able to take the whole experience and fashion it down. I'm amazed this movie is only 70 minutes. Knowing that my montage is, I show up about 20 minutes into it didn't seem right because there's so much packed into that first 20 minutes. That's a dense reel of film, metaphorically speaking.
Well, it's 79 minutes, and I think it could have been longer. For some reason, I wanted to keep it nice and tight.
Still very tight.
Yeah. The deleted scenes are about 17 minutes, and there's about a good, I'd say, 5 to 10 minute chunk that could be in the movie.
I do want to recommend Demon Stone while we're here. Have you seen Demon Stone?
I haven't seen Demon Stone. I have certain clips of it, obviously, as you see in the movie. I've seen them, but I haven't sat and watched the whole thing straight through. I definitely want to see it.
There was a limited pressing of the tape last year. I bought one, so I'll bring my VCR over next time if you like.
I saw the photo. I have a VCR.
You do?
Yeah.
It's set up?
Right down there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a DVD VCR combo underneath a Blu-ray player.
I am very impressed.
We're in my living room right now for anyone listening.
Still need a VCR. Not for a lot, but you still need a VCR. How are you going to watch the director's cut? I'm sorry, the theatrical cut of Blood Simple.
Exactly. There you go. Anyway, I totally forget where we
That sounds right where we should be.
Yeah. I know we were talking about something important. Demon Stone. Oh, well, Corey's actually a really good actor.
He is. I have watched so many low-budget movies. When I was a critic, people would find me and send me their movies, and for a while I said yes to everything. And then I learned that you can't do that because, 1, there's only so many hours in a day. 2, most of those movies are bad. And Demon Stone is maybe the best kind of that movie I've ever seen. It's so enjoyable and fun and unpretentious, and it just moves like water from scene to scene. Matt has a very good filmmaking sensibility, and I hope that he finds himself with bigger budgets in the future.
I think you sold me on it. I definitely want to check it out now. So bring me to meeting these guys. We kind of missed the whole backstory part. We did reference it, but I kind of bring them in one by one in the film, kind of how I met them, and I'm curious what your experience was meeting them. Do you remember?
I remember sort of the whole head over heels experience. It was like being caught in a wave. I think that I just realized that's a Breakfast Club t-shirt.
Yeah.
I probably met just about everyone that opening weekend, with the exception of...
Well, I know you met Corey. I remember you were talking, and if you can hear it faintly in the movie, you're talking to Corey about Patton Oswalt, whose wife had just died.
I don't know. I did not know that that's in the movie.
You can
Wow.
faintly hear it, and then you start talking about Rick and Morty.
Okay, that comes in with the Rick and Morty part. Yeah, I think with the exception of James, I probably met everyone that first weekend, so I'm sure you got a lot from that. If we were to actually see the timestamps on this stuff, that'd be interesting. Yeah, the first weekend was intense because not only is it the, I believe, second biggest drive-in screen on the East Coast of the United States, but that ended up being the day that the news broke of, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. I can't remember. Michelle McNamara? I hope that I have her name right. Patton Oswalt's late wife who died in her sleep. The impact of that was tremendous because I have been a fan of his work, and his work has seen me through some very difficult times. Before my mother passed away, I worked briefly in New York City, and it was a terrible experience. I will not name my employer. I came home just in time to spend about 2 months with my mother before she passed, and ended up actually in the hospital, in the room afterwards, getting the phone call from Best Buy that I was hired there. There weren't many good things that came from that experience. That's on me, not Best Buy. But one of them was that I purchased Patton Oswalt's Finest Hour CD. And he has a bit in that about the horrors of living in New York City. And it was the perfect catharsis. Great laughter. Don't listen to it while driving or drinking Dr. Pepper. That's the downside. He was there for me, and I got to see him with my brother a few years later, and we met very briefly. I didn't want to take up much of his time. I forgot that he was in Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, so we didn't have that whole conversation, thank goodness, because he was on his way to see The Master. I was on my way to see Looper. And he was a gentleman, and he is extremely good in person. I've seen him perform twice, including at Carnegie Mellon, and he's one of my favorite people. He lost his wife, and my mom's favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz, so all these feelings were smashing up against each other, and I was not uncontrollably weeping through the majority of the movie. It was one of the best screenings of my life.
Well, I remember you telling me, and it's funny, you told me all of that about your mom after I had made the film. And I was like, that would have been so, like, I think it would have added another dimension to you had we known that in the movie, that it was your mom's favorite movie. And it's just weird, like, that whole, like, we're here now, this is opening night, this whole scene. Kind of interesting that you decided to come that night and I decided to be there that night. Like, if we hadn't met that night, I don't know how much of you would have been in the film. Would we have eventually met? Would I have eventually started interviewing you?
Mm-hmm.
Because after this night, I said every time I see him at the Mahoning, I'm going to talk to him no matter what.
That's very flattering. Yeah, it's really something when you step back and think about how much chance there is in everything. I'm still kind of amazed. It's surreal.
Yeah.
I miss this guy. I miss these guys. And I miss that guy. And that laugh. Pixar. Get on him. That laugh needs to be in a Pixar film.
I made sure to include it in this film as much as I possibly could because I feel like it's his trademark, you know?
It would be very hard not to. Yeah.
Have you ever dressed up at the Mahoning? Cosplayed?
Kind of, sort of, for the 80s weekend they had 2 seasons back. I think that was Weird Science and Footloose, I think. My girlfriend dressed up a whole lot more than I did.
Okay, yeah. I remember James did the concession stand to look like the prom from Footloose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing what he does with his museum of resources. I can only imagine how much storage space he has to pay for just to keep all his props.
He's a perfectionist too, man. He takes it very seriously, and he's an artist.
He is.
Yeah. So Wizard of Oz is definitely one of my favorite movies too. And I'm glad excuse me, I'm glad you were able to come and see it and kind of honor your mom. That's pretty cool.
Indeed. I mean, I've had a lot of the best screening experiences of my life at this theater. It's tremendously disappointing to me that this was practically in my backyard. Oh, look at that guy.
There he is.
In my backyard for...
That's a nice Reservoir Dogs
the entirety of my life. It is. I have another one that's not very good. I'm glad I was wearing this one. The Mahoning Drive-in was within driving distance for me for the entirety of my life, and I didn't even know it existed until, I think, 2013. And I'm really hoping that your film helps boost their attendance, because I can't tell you how many terribly unsupported screenings they've had where 5 cars show up, 6 cars show up. Even since you made the film, it's on the up and up, but they have so much more promise, I think, to be uncovered.
So I mean, it's not I mean, there are some weekends now where that will happen. You know, it's like they have gigantic weekends.
We have those top-heavy, like Evil Dead trilogy weekend, and the different shows with Exhumed do particularly well.
Great line. 35 movies.
Oh, that goatee. Yeah, this was hard to watch in public for the first couple of screenings, but It did me good.
Why?
It's just like looking at yourself under the microscope. And what you see and what other people see isn't necessarily the same thing, and I've learned to yield to what other people see. Yeah, I still haven't seen My Son, What Have Ye Done?
That line, it gets a laugh every fucking time.
I think that might be by design. Herzog is very funny sometimes, and you kind of have to know what to...
The Brexit line is epic as well. That one always tears the house down.
And we're still in it. Like, not we, I mean, the greater we, but it's 8 weeks or 10 weeks now, I think, until they have to either leave or not. My goodness. These are beautiful shots.
Thank you.
He's my favorite thing in this movie. And this is, I think, my favorite cut coming up.
Oh, the ants?
The ants. That brought the house down at least twice. Yep.
It's not necessarily the cut, it's his delivery of the line.
It is.
It's so dry.
Well, it's both.
And he times it so well. I told him, I was like, you remind me, he almost reminds me of like a Mitch Hedberg, if you were to talk to Mitch Hedberg like in public. He's very dry, but very authentic.
He is. He can't be inauthentic. Cannot. In case my diction was unclear. I'm trying to root contractions out of my speech, like Jimmy Cahn's character from Thief. You have to speak more, but it's much less likely people will not understand you.
You are a very pronounced speaker. You do have a very, it's like, I feel like it's, I can't describe what it's like, but it's like you hit every syllable.
At Blockbuster, I was known as the Thesaurus Boy. That's adjacent to your point, but I think it speaks to that level of diction.
So that's intentional. You try to be as sort of clear and
I try to be well-spoken. I wish I was better read. I've had so little time for reading in my life since graduating because of, various adult responsibilities, got to put food on the table. And unfortunately, most of my time is spent watching movies. So I have taken Carrie out of the library 3 times consecutively. I haven't read a page yet, but got to see Carrie during a 24-hour horror marathon recently, and let me tell you, that still brings the house down.
They remade it, didn't they?
They did. I like the remake a lot, and I hope that it overcomes the remake stigma in time.
Okay.
It's nowhere nearly as good, in my opinion, but I think that it's a very, very strong movie unto itself.
Are there any remakes that you consider superior to the original?
Almost definitely The Thing. Philip Kaufman's Invasion of the Body Snatchers, with no offense to the original, also great.
Oh, I love the original.
I also love Abel Ferrara's, too, for what it's worth. There's actually quite a great deal, especially when you consider, Thomas Edison's Frankenstein versus James Whale's. James Whale's is better, of course. The Frankenstein of 1910 has been recently restored. Have you watched it?
I haven't. No, I've only seen the, was it from the 1930s?
Yeah, the 1931.
Yeah.
The original 1910 movie, it's not very good artistically, but to be able to see it in HD now, it was lost. This is going to be a total tangent, but I figure we have time for it. It was considered lost when I first kind of came of age. This speaks to the magic of film, I think. Only some publicity stills were available. That was it, in the books that were available at the time, at least. Then in the 90s, someone had it in a personal collection, and they allowed a DVD to be made from it. And that was sold and eventually made its way to YouTube and whatnot. And it was still amazing to watch, but it was such a low quality that watching the version that's now been restored, I think by the Library of Congress, you have to Google that to check, it's night and day. It's incredible. It's like watching an old DVD from the 90s versus a new 4K Blu-ray. It's startling. I'm not a total technophile, but in terms of the best of film and digital, it's way up there because it's such an incredible portal into the past.
So, real quick, before we get to this, The Blob from 1988,
yes,
I think is almost one of the best horror movies of the 80s.
I would agree.
And far superior to the 1950s version.
I think I would probably put it in my top maybe 20 of the decade, and I love the 58 version, don't get me wrong, but the 88 version is very, very strong.
You go to the Colonial quite a bit, which is where they filmed scenes from the original 1950. Was it 58?
58, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love that theater. Their all-night Splatterfest is something to go to every year. I almost went this past year, but the Mahoning, naturally, had a great lineup with Suspiria and Hausu.
Wow.
Oh, you have to make these decisions sometimes.
So I'm curious about your thoughts of this whole scene here. So Virgil kind of talks about his backstory and with his family, and Jeff tells this story about his birthday party as a kid, and then he kind of gets into his personal life where he's not married.
This might even be my favorite sequence.
And why is that?
Something about his intimacy. Like, this guy has done so much, and we're so indebted to him, and he brings so much life to it. It's him, and I believe you mentioned the unacknowledged member of the cast, the person who owns the land of the drive-in, who allows the drive-in to flourish.
And it's funny, people ask me that sometimes. Like, some people will catch that. They're like, oh, he never mentions the name of the landowner. And in sort of, I don't know if this is pretentious or not, but sort of tying this movie into like a religious, religious overtones. So this sort of unseen, unheard from landowner, he's kind of like God.
There's something angelic about it, absolutely.
So I think it's more interesting that we don't know who this random person is. Now, could I have put another reference to him later in the movie? Probably I should have.
I'm not sure about that. Although I will mention that this is maybe my favorite thing that you included. This is hard, and this cuts deep, and I think this helps bring it home.
Do you think it was inappropriate of me to ask any of this stuff?
I don't think so. I think that everyone took you into their lives such that they were willing to open up, and I think that there's a great deal of integrity here.
I wanted to put this in because I feel like he's not correct. I feel like he does have a family, and I feel like the people at the Mahoning, to be cliche and cheesy for a moment, they are his family. You guys are his family, and he mentions he loves Jess, and they have a friendship, and he has a friendship with Virgil and Matt and everybody, and
your family is what you make it, especially as you get older.
Exactly. And I thought by having this in here, I wanted people to almost say, no, you're wrong, these people are your family. And at the end of the movie, hopefully they see that, and hopefully he sees that.
I think it's an unspoken truth, and I mean, I disagree with a number of the things I say here. There's a lot more to the Friday the 13th franchise, for instance, than I first would have given it credit for. I think there's some lousy movies in it, but second and third one especially, I had to give into the fact that I was interested in where else these were to go. And Jason X is just wonderfully cheesy.
Oh God, I hate.
There's nothing wrong with being cheesy, to say to go off what you were saying earlier, and I can't get. I can't begin to get down on anyone for hating Jason X. It's objectively terrible.
I saw Jason X in the theater.
Oh,
but
bless you.
I wasn't old enough technically to see an R-rated movie, and the ticket people, they said, "Oh, you need an adult with you." 'Cause I was with two of my friends, so we asked some lady if she would pretend to be like our mom. So she did, and they didn't believe it, but they were like, all right, well, we're going to come in 5 minutes after the movie, and if that lady's gone, we're going to kick you guys out. So naturally, this lady was a stranger, but she was willing to help us. So we said, go ahead, go, and we'll figure this out. So the movie starts, she goes, we change clothes. I take my sweatshirt off, and then we scatter. So we sat individually instead of together. So 5 minutes after the movie starts, the ushers come in with flashlights going through the entire crowd looking for three guys in specific clothes. We weren't wearing those clothes, and we weren't together anymore. And the guy literally came right in front of me with the light but didn't recognize me. It was awesome. I felt like that moment in Predator when Arnold is laying down in the mud and the Predator can't see him. So
good reference point.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Have you ever met Gene, by the way?
I have not, and I consider that to be a great disservice to my appreciation for the drive-in. I hope to meet him soon.
I
want to thank him.
I think you and him would get along. He's a real chatty guy.
I'm afraid of how well we'll get along.
Yeah, he has a lot to say. I loved hanging out with him that day. He thought I was going to be interviewing him, so every single time he would talk to them, and then he would look at me and be like, all right, go ahead, start. And I'd be like, no, I'm just filming you interacting with them. But actually, I had two cameras. This was the only time I had two cameras. So you will notice I had one locked on him, which I would kind of continuously change from close-up to wide. And then I had a handheld camera, and I kept the handheld camera predominantly on the guys on the couch.
A real David Fincher.
Yeah, and then he's mic'd up. As you can see, he's got a little mic there that goes into the stationary camera for his audio, and the audio from the guys was just picked up from the mic on top of my handheld camera. So this was a challenging thing to shoot. Like, I was wired on caffeine for this one because I knew there was going to be a lot of things I had to focus on. No pun intended.
So you felt gypped by Jason X is what I'm taking it.
I'm still pissed about Jason
X.
I mean, watching somebody's face get frozen and then smashed off is fun, but yeah, when he became Uber Jason, I was like done.
Oh, fighting Dave Bowman in space, who can move at right angles in a zero gravity environment.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that.
That was I understand totally. So I was, as some of you may know already, if you've dipped into some of the other special features, I was wrong about Ant-Man. Go see it.
Well, don't. Yeah. So go watch the special or the deleted scenes because Rob will reference his Ant-Man experience at the very end of the deleted scenes. So. I really wanted to get him at the drive-in, but apparently it wasn't possible. But I would have loved to have him there.
Hopefully he can visit. I know that mobility is probably difficult, but I'd certainly be happy to do whatever it took to help accommodate.
I feel like only including him once in the middle of the movie, though, was kind of more in keeping with his mythos. It was kind of like, it was like Yoda. They travel to Dagobah to see him. If I had him, appear again at the end, he would kind of steal the thunder from you guys in a way. He needs to be more mythic in a sense,
Like a Yeti.
So have you ever slept at the drive-in?
I have, twice, I believe, and I hope to do a lot more of it. I actually want to camp there, particularly, go with a tent and set up and do that on a number of weekends this coming season.
Where did you sleep when you slept
in the
there?
snack stand area.
Okay.
Not in the back like they're going to now, but out in the main lobby, perhaps.
I remember at first Matt was very hesitant to let me film them and mention the fact that they slept there, because I think he thought somehow it was like a code violation or something, but it was closed down. There was, because food is served, but it's like no, it's closed down, and you're not like sleeping in the food. It's still, you're still away from everything. So it took a little bit of cajoling to get him to open up and speak about it. But
Spider-Man weekend. I came early to get a good seat this weekend.
So you were one of the people who were there.
To get a good spot in the lot, I showed up early. And
well, did you come on Friday or Saturday? I think this is Saturday that I'm here.
I think it was Friday, but I don't think the attendance was any better.
Yeah, I remember them saying Friday was pretty...
Oh, and you know what? I remember now, it was not raining.
Okay.
We were lucky enough on Friday, and even then, nobody came. I believe Captain America Civil War opened that weekend, and if there was any excitement for superheroes, that might have stolen it. Part of the problem is too many people just don't know about it. I didn't know about it for how long. I would have driven there hundreds of times over the years. Been to Becky's and Shankweiler's that much. Have you been to the other semi-local drive-ins?
I have not.
They're both wonderful. Get to Shankweiler's if you can. They're still open, and they might not be around much longer.
Well, I know it's for sale, right?
They are probably going to sell. I know that they work very hard, and they deserve to have a comfortable retirement. And hey, if they close, at least the last movie I saw there, Isle of Dogs, was a good one. Apropos of this drive-in's difficulties on screen at the moment, though, that weekend they had a very cute idea. They paired Show Dogs and Isle of Dogs, which happened to be in general release at the same time. And still, there might have been 6 cars that night. It's a dying art form.
It's a great delivery by Corey.
Yeah.
Patrick, so 3 tickets.
Now, how do you feel about the drive-in experience when weather interferes? Are you still one to go? Because I had to sit on the seat, not on the seat. I had to sit on the door of my car, holding an umbrella in the rain in order to watch Goodfellas, because there was no way I was watching the Layla montage with window wipers. And I had not yet realized that at a poorly attended drive-in, you can just park sideways in the rain and watch through your side window, if you don't mind getting a little rain on you.
Yeah. First of all, the Layla montage is one of the best montages in movie history. You know, to me, you know, it's funny when you say that because this movie played at the Mahoning. It screened there in May of last year, May of 2018, and it rained. It was like shitty weather, and I was so bummed. And I feel like it would have been better attended had it not.
Was that both nights? Because I only remember it being gloomy. But
it was gloomy one night and it was rainy the other night.
Okay, I think I was there the gloomy night.
Yeah, but even still, like, gloomy seems to throw some people off.
I understand the disinclination towards that. And fun fact, one of the secret messages we got at the end of last season, you know, the little where people can suggest a double feature or send
box.
A secret, and someone had written, might be paraphrasing, but quote unquote, "I hate my husband for bringing us here in the rain." Now me, I love going to a drive-in movie even if it's in the rain, because if you're with your friends, it's just hangout time.
Yeah.
If it's you know, a horror movie and the fog rolls in, well, then there's this extra level of menace in a way.
It's like 4D.
Maybe you can't even see the movie properly, but if it's like a good schlocky B movie about werewolves or something, that doesn't even matter that much. Vampire's Kiss with fog so thick that you couldn't even see the screen was as good as any experience I've ever had at the drive-in. Because not only do I think that it's an underrated Nicolas Cage classic, but it was so mind-tripping in a singular way.
So what are your thoughts on this sequence here, introducing Mark? Not just the sequence, but Mark in general. Like, what did you think when you heard this guy drive 6.5 hours? And what do you think of the sequence?
It's a very well-composed sequence. I don't know how he shot it, so assuming that he's doing this safely while driving. I don't watch very much of his TV show where he reviews movies, or I guess his YouTube show, whatever you want to call it. But he has such a wonderful camera presence, and he knows how to project himself. And he strikes me as a slightly more refined version of what I would like to be. And if self-actualization were to ever kick in, I think it would look a lot like what he does. And I'm just grateful I don't have to drive this far to go to the Mahoning, because I would want to.
Well, what did you think when you heard this guy drive 6.5 hours just to be there each weekend?
I think that I was humbled, and I also don't really think I was surprised, because I'd already kind of just at a very, like at the level of osmosis, I understood just how dedicated this person was to it.
I just want to interject real quick. You had another great line that we just missed. It was Mark was sort of talking about the cooler or something, and you go, well, it's clearly a health code violation.
Hopefully not. I don't miss the old coolers, I gotta say.
I think you were just making a joke, but your delivery was so spot on. And you could see the sweat on Jeff's head. It gets so hot in there over the summer. He has these fans that he puts on, but I feel so bad because there's no way that it makes a dent when it's just like 100 degrees and humid.
Did you ever see the remake of Maniac with Elijah Wood?
No.
That's supposed to be good, and I like the first one, but I think it could be improved upon. I'm still trying to think of these remakes. It never stops, folks.
The Willy Wonka remake was the worst thing I've ever...
I'm not a fan of it.
It drives me nuts because I don't want it to become... I love Willy Wonka so much that I don't want the Johnny Depp version to be considered the version.
Has this cut of the movie been altered at all? Because I do not remember that shot of Santa Claus with the gremlin.
Yes, this has
Wow.
I didn't George Lucas this, if that's what you're asking. I did see... Well, that brings me into my next... James, as a perfectionist, as we mentioned, he requested that certain images that I used of his decorations were not up to snuff. He said he did a better job and would like to be better represented in that area, and I acquiesced. So
that's very kind of you. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, James is actually the reason this movie exists. He introduced me to the Mahoning. We actually went to grade school and high school and everything together and grew up in the same town. So, I owed it to him.
I love how he sways here.
He hates that. He always says, he's like, why did you show me? I just sway. I look like I have a...
It's because he has so much passion.
Yes.
He's so exuberant that he can't stand still. And
I know.
He brings that to everything that he does.
I feel the same way. I feel like it shows how excited and just happy he is. He has a lot of life in him.
Well, it's one of the few places where we can go and entirely be who we are.
Do you know these guys at all?
I don't think I've ever met them. I don't know their names. I don't think they're mentioned by name in the film.
No, but Andrew and Andy. Or Andrew and Andrew. I think they're both called Andrew.
Okay.
So you never brought a tent to the drive-in?
I think that I brought a tent once and ended up not pitching it. Yeah, I'm almost at the point of counting down the days. It's about 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months, a little over 3 months, yeah. Do you ever sleep in your car?
I have a few times. It's pretty comfortable. And I'm at the point, too, where I'm just going to plan on that. To force yourself to make that trip home after being there for so long, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I think we talked about my accident last year on the way home from a film screening. These, things mean a lot to me, but at a certain point you just have to be practical and say, not right now. So I've passed up on great screenings this past year, if only because I was tired.
What happened with your accident? I don't think you ever told me about that.
It was the first winter storm of the year, and I hit a patch of ice on my way home from an Exhumed show in Philadelphia. And thankfully, the damage to the car was minimal, but I was without wheels for a few weeks, so had a lot of time to think about it. Thankfully, I work from home, and it didn't impact my living situation at all. I was able to, my brother took me to The Last Jedi opening night, so I didn't miss out on anything terribly important, but it was a real eye-opener. I really like your use of the religious music here.
Yeah. And the light of
and
God.
I don't think that there's anything pretentious about it, and even if it is, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's better to try to do more, to exceed, for your reach to exceed your grasp. I don't think that's a bad thing. Kevin Smorth.
Does he still do this?
I am pretty sure that this is continued, but I haven't been to... I was not at Kevin Smith Fest this past year.
There's a deleted scene of... Well, there's a deleted scene of him who's dressed as the zombie with the face covered up. And there's a deleted scene of the Kevin Smith, the Jay and Silent Bob couple. So, if you haven't seen the deleted scenes yet, you can see more.
That looks like a new shot as well.
No, that's been in there.
Okay. Huh. Well, keep noticing new things in just about every good movie.
Here comes your epic story about Dwarf's Kingdom, which I did. Did I tell you that I reached out to the filmmaker?
You did. I feel badly. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, I don't either, but I emailed him and I'm like, hey, someone in my documentary mentioned your film. And he seemed excited. He seemed happy about it. And I told him I'd send him a copy. So when this is done, I'll have to send him a copy.
I wonder if it's possible to see that movie now. I wish I'd done some research.
I looked at the trailer. The trailer looked very interesting. But that was like 2 years ago.
And, it was thanks to my friend Walter Chow. He reviewed it and ended up having it screening at the theater that he managed at the time in Littleton, Colorado. And the director was there for a Q&A, and that's where the first iteration of that idea came from. It's the scene in Kane where they use the special lens against the giant windows in the back room, and in the back of the room to suggest the false depth. And whatever deliberately or not was there, it was a great visual rhyme. And hopefully more people get to see it, because I think that it is in the same vein of very small, very personal, very singular documentaries that I'm a big fan of.
And
that's
also,
your favorite movie, right?
Yes.
Back to the Future?
Back to the Future is my all-time favorite movie. Now, I have several favorite movies, but if I have to pick one, it was kind of the movie that raised me as a little kid. So I'll always state that one, but I would say It's a Wonderful Life, Wizard of Oz. Yes. By the way, that you were. Can we clarify? You were wiping that down so you could see the screen better, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's awesome.
I'm just going to start pitching tents over the car, I think. Help keep the rain out and whatnot.
Yeah, that's you and Corey.
Oh, stop talking, man.
So this. Well, no. I like that because you're revealing. There's more to you than you're saying. I think it's your body language, and there's a lot of. What's more interesting to me about you is that sort of unspoken stuff. And this scene too, Matt always feels bad about this.
Oh, I don't think he should.
He defended himself by saying he's answering. He was waiting for a very important text message, and so that's when he takes his phone out.
I don't take any offense to it. Never have. I think that he's very, very gracious. And oh no, my apologies.
There goes your Coke.
It avoided the couch.
Good. My wife would kill me. So you're not a Friday the 13th fan, but you came this weekend, right?
I usually show up on Camp Blood weekend. I think it was Camp Blood weekend.
Yeah.
I love horror movies, but sometimes they just wear you down. And I think it was Friday the 13th part 5? I can't remember. I find I can watch about one a year. What with all the other, I mean, I love, Lucio Fulci, I love Rob Zombie, I love a lot of things that are very intense from a graphic standpoint, but at the same time, sometimes I'm very sensitive to it. I nearly passed out to, incidentally, both of Alex Garland's recent movies, Ex Machina and Annihilation.
Really?
One of the things that really gets to me is images of self-harm. Have you seen either or both of those?
I've seen Annihilation. I haven't seen Ex Machina.
Ex Machina, spoiler alert, has a scene where one of the characters, he's not trying to commit suicide, but he does cut himself. And that got to me. It was actually right after I'd moved to Colorado. And in addition to being a mile higher in the air, I was a little drunk. And that part of the movie just devastated me, and I was going to leave, but on my way out of the theater I found an empty spot in the back where a wheelchair could be placed, and I just laid down for a few minutes so I could not miss that much of the movie. Annihilation, spoiler alert, it's the scene near the end, not the part with the intestines, not the part with the bear, which terrified me in a way that no movie has since the Blair Witch Project. It's the scene where I can't remember the character's name. It's not Ventress. It's Tessa Thompson's character who had hurt herself is getting up and giving herself to the shimmer. And I had to lean against the seat in front of me. I nearly laid down on the floor, popcorn and sticky stuff be damned. It was so much, and it took a few minutes. I came back to my senses and finished the movie. And then I saw it 4 more times.
Yeah. The only horror movie that ever really hit me like that was actually Hereditary.
Oh.
Hereditary,
wow.
Yeah. It did a number on me.
Was it the
It was.
Was it that
yes,
scene?
Yes, it was that scene.
Okay.
But it was the reaction to that scene
when Toni Collette goes
Yes,
out. Oh my
yes.
gosh, I loved Hereditary. How about you?
It's the only movie for me that is considered best movie of 2018.
Okay.
Like normally I make a list, but I feel like every movie was so. Here, let me hold your microphone. Robert is trying to open a Coca-Cola bottle right now.
For about 10 minutes.
Just be careful that doesn't get on the couch.
No, it won't. Thank you.
So yeah, Hereditary really messed me up. Were you? So we saw those little kids dressed up as Jason. Were you watching horror movies at all when you were a kid? Were you allowed? What types of movies were you watching when you were small?
I wouldn't have been allowed to watch those. I did in good time, not Friday the 13th so much as, The Godfather, other R-rated movies in the classic movie canon. I started off my cinematic diet. Everyone has like the Disney clamshells and stuff for the most part. If you're talking middle-class American experiences in the 1980s, I had that and whatnot. I saw Beauty and the Beast 6 times. I watched Alice in Wonderland until the tape wore out. But when I really started getting into movies, it was classic horror, and then that eventually branched off into other genres and time periods. And one of the great things about the drive-in is they will show all these like horror movies that I've never even heard of, and it's always as much of an education as it is entertainment, in my opinion.
So I want to jump in here real quick. I lied before. This is the second time I used 2 cameras. This camera here, which I'm hand holding, and then there's the wide shot, this one on a tripod. This was the wedding of Sean and Trisha, obviously, and pretty awesome that they got married there. And I remember asking them, like, I told them I would give them, some footage if they let me shoot, and they were like, yeah. This is added. So this little moment here, this is new.
And that skull is there because the previous night we screened Cannibal Holocaust.
I felt like this was necessary to add because it's only about 30 seconds of Sean explaining why the Mahoning was so important to him and Trisha. And he tells a story about being the only ones there with Jeff once. And I just felt like it made the wedding scene feel more pertinent.
And connected, maybe.
Yeah. Because originally I didn't even mention how, so you'll see the text on the screen saying, the fee from this wedding helped pay for something that would change their future. That originally wasn't there in the first cut of the movie, so this was even more of an outlier. So I feel like this and that moment that I added, I feel like really tie the wedding in, and also the theme of love, like the ultimate vow of love. So, and then this is what I consider the climax of the movie. So this is my big action climax.
The unveiling of the booth.
Yes.
I love that booth. I got to play the last movie of the last season.
Oh, yeah? What was that?
We popped in a VHS of the Wachowskis' Bound.
Wow. That's a deep cut.
That's new, isn't it?
Nope.
No?
This scene hasn't been touched.
Okay.
And I feel like the energy of this was just the comments, the way they told the stories. I didn't want to mess with this. I didn't want to mess with anything, really. I just had to add in a few couple things. I did not want to pull a George Lucas or a Steven Spielberg 2002 E.T. special edition, which was a disaster, and he admitted that he made a mistake releasing that. So
it's been very satisfying watch that fade into the background.
Yeah, because I bought the Blu-ray and it was nowhere to be found on it. I'm
very hard-pressed to come up with disappointments from the drive-in, and one of them is that when they screened E.T., it was the 2002 cut. Hopefully they get the original next time.
Was it? It was on film too, right?
It was on film.
That's bizarre that they would send the film, that they would send that version on film.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I know that sometimes something is so, like, not that we could get it, but in 1967 or 69, they re-released Gone with the Wind, but they decided to make it a widescreen movie, which of course involves cutting out about 40% of the picture. You can't even watch that version anymore. They destroyed it.
I just got the Criterion collection of The Magnificent Ambersons, which was Orson Welles' follow-up to Citizen Kane, and it's such a magnificent movie. I'm devastated that like an hour of it is just gone forever.
It's very sad, and I remember learning that in college and being so angry. I can't remember the name of the writer, but someone wrote a review of it in conjunction with that recent release from Criterion with Slant Magazine, and they did get at something very salient, I think, in saying that there was this subtextual pull of the movie that as the Ambersons fall apart, so does the film.
And he's referring obviously to the current cut,
the studio interference.
Yeah, not Wells's original, because I think they're able to determine what went into Wells's original cut.
I think that everything still exists in the form of the script.
Yeah,
because I've even heard like Roger Ebert's former editor Jim Emerson has suggested that film students could in fact replicate the style in this exercise of recreating the original movie. And goodness, look what Netflix has done with The Other Side of the Wind recently. I have not seen it yet myself, but by all accounts, it's one of the most important releases of 2018.
If you like Wells, I highly recommend the documentary They'll Love Me
When I'm Dead,
which was on Netflix, which was amazing.
I think Netflix is going to get their first Best Picture nomination this year. What about you?
With Roma?
I think Roma is going to get nominated, and I think it pretty much deserves it.
Yeah, it'll get nominated for sure. It might even win. I think it's totally up in the air, just like last year. Like I feel like there's no... Of the movies they're considering, there's nothing to me that stands out as like clearly head and shoulders. Same with last year.
Agreed. It's a whole new world with the efforts towards inclusivity, and in 2 years between Moonlight and The Shape of Water, they've, I think, really redefined what a best picture can look like. I think it's very exciting. I secretly hope, it's not my favorite movie of the year, it's very close. I hope that we see Spike Lee walk away with some Oscars finally.
I think it'd be a reach, but you never know.
You never know.
So these quick jump cuts here, people always ask me a million times about them. Mark Nelson was the only person to nail where I got the reference on a sort of surface level, which was Easy Rider. The scene transitions in Easy Rider.
I was thinking Bob Fosse's editing style, but you're right. That's definitely Easy Rider, which I saw for the first time at the drive-in.
I wanted to kind of connote that, okay, this is a different world now we're entering. It was sort of transitioning the story into a whole new stratosphere, essentially, with this digital booth and being able to literally show anything now. If it was only on VHS, DVD, if it's on YouTube, I assume they can probably get it somehow.
We would probably have to download it off-site and bring it in. They've limited high-def downloads, to my knowledge, but it's all there.
So you really weren't, I know you're a purist. I know you're a bit of a sort of cinephile, so to speak. This booth didn't bother you at all?
Not in the slightest. It opened things up wonderfully. If print doesn't show up, boom, we can pop in the DVD or the Blu-ray or even the tape. It really allows us to do just about anything we want. I mean, the exception proves the rule, I think. I mean, you're a cinephile, I think it's fair to say, and you shot on digital. Nothing wrong with that.
I do want to say, I think we missed it. It was my homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Was it one of the shots of the screen?
It was a shot of the projector close up, and it looked like
Hal.
Yes.
I never picked up on that. Very good.
That was intentional, because it was almost suggesting this new digital, it was kind of, But at the same time, I think I agree with you that I think it definitely opens up the drive-in. But I feel like it could be this scary thing that you don't, this mysterious, scary thing that you don't quite understand until, till you get to know it, or until you pull the plug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is a good example of what I aspire towards.
He's another person like you who he hits every syllable, and he's very he enunciates very properly.
I'm nodding my head in agreement. I hope we see you there sometime this season.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there. I definitely want to. I know they're planning a Ninja Turtles weekend. I'll be there.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm already planning. The Colonial's going to screen a print of it for their kids series.
Which one? The original?
The original, which is the only one I've seen, save for the... I watched the 20.
It's the only one you need to see. Yeah, the first one. Yeah, every other one. Secret of the Ooze does not hold up, unfortunately. With Vanilla Ice rapping, Super Shredder, and Kino, who might be the worst side character in any Turtles movie. Oh, there you are.
Ugh. Oh, okay, I remember this part now.
It's a very Terrence Malikian...
It feels a little Malick.
You wanted to be in a Herzog documentary, but instead you're in a somewhat Terrence Malick-esque shot.
I had to drive 50 miles to see Knight of Cups the second time in a theater, so I don't mind that in the slightest.
And you have new glasses now.
I do have new glasses now. If you look carefully, you'll see that my left arm is glued to the lenses. I was not taking very good care of myself.
And your friend with the orange Prius, does he know he's referenced?
He does. He saw this at the festival screening in Bethlehem the night before ours at the Chinese Theater.
The Southside Film Festival.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And according to him, there was a kindly older woman seated near him who referred to me as that guy.
Someone wrote a review of the film and mentioned you without mentioning your name. And it said, the director lets this one guy talk way too long.
That is accurate.
I'm like, okay, like that's fine. Like it's just not that person's type of humor, Like I find when you go on, and I just love the sort of gymnastics of dialogue, Like I love those long monologues. And how you end up in these interesting places, and it's not scripted, so it's even better to me. It's better than a Tarantino or an Aaron Sorkin monologue.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, that's great.
I think I want that on a T-shirt. Oh, you know what? I want to plug a movie that's very similar to yours. Have you seen Giuseppe Makes a Movie?
No.
It's a great little documentary about a very determined filmmaker, and it has one of my favorite characters ever in a movie. And mind you, these are real people. His name is Vietnam Ron. I feel like the less I say, the better.
Great, yeah.
Seek out Giuseppe Makes a Movie. I plan on buying it as a gift for some of the gentlemen we've been watching here.
Yeah, I love Patrick sort of chastising me for only bothering him when he has nothing to say.
Yeah, he's always got something good to say.
So we're coming to the end here. Do you have any memories while I was... So did you think at any point that I wasn't going to finish this? Did you think, oh, this is not going to be anything, this isn't going to get done? Like, what were you thinking while I was filming this in terms of the final product? What did you think it was going to be?
I certainly wasn't thinking that I would be recording a commentary track in 3 calendar years, but I knew something was going to come of it. There was just no doubt. This was clearly a passion project, and I knew it was just a matter of time.
What were you expecting as a final product? Where did you think, what type of documentary or what type of film, what did you think tonally this would be like?
I guess I trusted you enough to know that it would have something like reverence, I guess is the word. Not knowing anything that you've ever made before, having never seen any of your other films, I just would, without, condescension, say I didn't think it would be as good. Most filmmakers of your caliber, or your level of experience and whatnot. I've seen so many bad, low budget movies. Like I'm so grateful for the boon of creativity that digital has allowed, but I don't think it's actually increased the number of talented people working. Like if you'd had to make this with film, it would have cost you more. It might have been harder, but I think you still would have done it. Nothing was standing in your way.
How would you describe this movie to somebody who asks, what is this? Why should I see this?
Well, I think it's very warm. I think that it's very unpretentious, actually, to challenge one of your earlier,
Well, I meant my analysis of my own work, I feel like, is very pretentious.
True. Yeah, I think I might be a little speechless again here. I don't know. I feel a little boxed in because it's not something that I'm so effusive about that I want to show everybody. But if someone gets to know me and they want to see it, I'd happily show it to them. We have the poster hanging in our main room. It's right next to Starry Night.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, here's the payoff to Jeff's story and why I think including it is definitely better for him, and I feel like the redemption in a character is only better the worse it seems at first. Does that make sense? The more you pull down on their story, the higher they can kind of go when they're
I agree.
redeemed. Does this make you dizzy?
No.
Some people have yelled at me for getting dizzy during the shot.
Oh. No.
So I apologize. Even though I didn't film it. I think it was James.
Okay. I remember being on this roof, getting down as a son of a bitch.
And then we have the arc to Virgil. And we missed your big finale arc where you were standing behind the concession stand.
Where I'll probably be in just a few months.
Will you be at opening weekend?
Definitely. Might not be Friday night, but hopefully. Hopefully both nights, because half the time you're there, you just want to hang out, even if the movies are playing. It's so rare to see so many people, because goodness knows, you know how many people drive from how far.
Yeah.
Oh, my old phone. I dropped it in a pool.
Do you have that photo that you just took? Like, was it saved to a cloud anywhere? I would love to have that photograph.
There's a chance it's on Instagram. There's a chance it's on a hard drive somewhere. There's a chance it's in the cloud, although I really doubt that because it took me a long time to set it up, and that phone went in the pool. That's not quite the note to end it on. We have a few minutes.
I think that's a great way to end. We actually don't. We have about 10 seconds. So.
Oh, very brief credits.
Yeah. So thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having.
It was great watching the movie with you again, and you gave some great Robert monologues, so thank you.
Thank you for having.